Are you an established small business owner or aspiring entrepreneur? Would you like professional advice to help your business grow and succeed? Well, look no further. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is the territory's #1 resource to move your business forward. Enjoy no-cost advising, low-cost training, and technical assistance from experts in both the public and private sectors. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Visit us at our locations on St. Thomas, St. John, or St. Croix, and follow us on social media at VISBDC. For easy access to all our training and networking events, be sure to join our newsletter and download the VISBDC app. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, here to help your business start, grow, and succeed.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the VISBDC's hosting of Predictive Power, How to Budget and Forecast for Maximum Profit. Forecasting is about predicting your business's future financial performance. It involves using historical data, market trends, and economic factors to project future sales, expenses, and cash flow. Budgeting is the process of creating a detailed plan for your money. It sets specific financial goals and allocates funds to different areas of the business. While a forecast predicts what might happen, a budget dictates what should happen. Allow me to introduce today's presenter, VISBDC advisor, Mrs. Rael Reddick, and she'll begin to share her screen so you can start seeing her PowerPoint. With over 30 years in finance, Rael brings a wealth of experience and a passion for helping businesses thrive. For 2 decades, Rael served as Chief Financial Officer for a global medical device manufacturer, steering financial strategy and growth across international markets. More recently, Rael has spent the past 4 years with the VISBDC on St. Croix, guiding aspiring entrepreneurs through the nuts and bolts of launching and growing their businesses. From registering and licensing a business, crafting solid business plans to demystify budgets, and building dynamic marketing strategies, Rael loves turning big ideas into real-world success stories. As a small business owner herself, she knows what it means to take a chance on your dream. When it comes to business, Rael's motto is simple: plan smart, stay curious, and never be afraid to try. Here's a friendly reminder to place your questions in the chat, and they will be addressed by the presenting team either directly in the chat or later during our question and answer segment. A copy of today's presentation will be attached to the post survey email sent after this live session. We encourage you to take a few minutes of your time to briefly fill out the survey that lets us know how we are doing. This data is essential to us rendering these deliverables complimentary to you. So without further ado, Rael, the floor is yours. And we don't see your screen as yet, so you can go ahead and share your screen.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and share numbers. I'm a nerd. I like the numbers. And I enjoy taking time to teach people how the numbers can work for them. So we're going to simplify it. I know it's a lot of words, it's a lot of big words, and numbers can be very frightening. But hopefully, with today, we're going to take the fear out of the numbers. We're not only going to learn how, but we're going to learn why. And we're going to take all of this information, which will then empower you to turn your passion into profit. That's the goal. So, what you're going to learn today is what the difference is between budgeting and forecasting, how you're going to use the information to adjust or identify how your business is doing. The numbers will always tell a story. The numbers tell you the financial health of your business. And then we're going to talk about some helpful tools and techniques to help you identify where changes need to be made, timelines of when to look at what you're going to adjust, and how to make it work for your business. Okay? So, this is one of my favorite quotes. I get a lot of businesses that say, I don't have a clue. I'm just now starting. I don't know where to start. I don't know what my sales numbers are going to be because I haven't started yet. In other cases, I get businesses who are very well established and they say, it's out of control and I don't know how to fix it. And because it's out of control, I don't know where to start. So the important thing is start where you are. It doesn't matter how established you are or if you're brand new. You can start exactly where you are. You can use what you have. And then from there, we identify, do what you can. Okay. Know the numbers. Forecasting. When it comes to forecasting, I want to simplify this a little bit. So forecasting tells us what could happen. If sales increase, if prices increase, if there's a disaster, it tells us what could happen. The budget tells us what should happen. The budget is where we have a little bit more control and can make faster strategic decisions. Okay? Here's the thing with forecasting and budgeting. Everyone does this every single day, whether you realize you're doing it or not. And I want you to think about your own personal situation, not your business, your own personal situation. You know how much money you make every month. Whether you have a job outside or whether your business is supporting you financially, you know how much money you have in your bank account right now and how much money you anticipate bringing in this month. You also know what your expenses are. You know what your rent or mortgage payment is. You know what your car payment is if you have one. You know what your insurance payment is, your electric bill. Well, okay, we all live in the Virgin Islands. So we hope we know what our WAPA bill is going to be. Cell phone, all of these things that we spend money on. And in our mind, some of us write it down, but most of us in our mind, when we go to the grocery store, we know how much money we have to spend on groceries that week. So throughout your day, if you're going to the grocery store, if you're signing up for a new app, if you are putting gas in your car, if you've got children and children have activities, you know how much you have to spend on all of that, and you know how much money you've got coming in to cover that. So in a roundabout way, everybody is forecasting and budgeting every single day. What we're going to do today is take that and apply it to your business and help you to understand that all you're doing is taking what you already know and putting it into your business. Okay, forecasting and budgeting. Let's look at forecasting first. So remember, forecasting tells us what could happen. Okay, so when we look at why we forecast, anticipating cash flow needs, what does that mean? It tells us how much cash we are going to need to cover the expenses. How much cash is going to go in from our sales and how much cash is going to go out to pay the bills. It shows trends. So where it says identifies growth opportunities. When we look at trends, what we're looking at is the ebb and flow of our business. So we know that typically living here in the territory, that especially for those of you that live on St. Thomas and St. John, you have a very robust tourism market. So if you've got, say, a gift shop or a boutique that thrives on the tourism market, then you should see higher sales during season when we're in season. So those are trends. You can look at which months are typically lower in sales, which months are typically higher in sales. You can also look at, are there certain months throughout the year where your expenses seem to be a little bit higher? And then identify what those months are. So it's going to look kind of like a wave, and you can actually see the trends as they're happening in your business. Forecasting can also highlight changes. So again, we're going to use the example of a gift shop. When we're in season, you can see the changing market and how it affects your sales, your expenses. You can also identify changes in the market. Are there new, let's take a look at that for a minute. Are there new gift shops popping up? Are gift shops going out of business and now you're one of the only ones available? So it allows you to identify those market changes, and then you can shift accordingly to adjust for those changes. That's what it means when it says inform strategic decisions. When you look at the forecasting and you allow what has happened to identify those trends, you can then make strategic decisions to make the changes. So again, if we take this back to a personal example, it's always easier if we look at home and then it kind of shines a spotlight on it. So if we're anticipating cash flow needs, we know what we need for our bills. Again, we know what we're bringing in. We know what our paycheck is. But when we look at trends, is there something, let's say you have small children. Is there a time of year like your child is in sports and it's the beginning of the school year and they play baseball? Well, you know, by looking at the historical data, that in the fall, you're going to have a little bit more money going out to afford your child being able to go to baseball. That's a trend. He doesn't play baseball all year. I should say he or she. Girls can play baseball. They don't play baseball all year. There's a season. So you can look at that trend. Knowing that helps you prepare for that. Now, maybe they're switching from middle school to high school and the costs are a little bit more expensive. You can prepare for that. You see that coming. You know that the child's going to want to do this. You can then make an informed decision. What do you have to change in your budget to make this happen? So if you take what you're doing in your business and you look at what you're doing at home, you can typically implement the forecasting that you need with a lot less fear. That's the key, okay? When you look at the changes and the trends and you know why you're forecasting, it can arm you with the knowledge to make the changes that you need to make. Okay, how do we forecast? I get this question a lot because people say, I'm just starting a business. I don't know what my sales are going to be. I haven't started yet. How am I supposed to know what my sales are going to be? Well, the first thing you do is you gather historical data. What does that mean? It means look at what's already happened. Now, for the business owner that is already established, that's easy to do. Look back at what your sales were. Look back at the trends. You should be able, whether you're doing it yourself or you have a bookkeeper, you should be able to pull a report. If that means you're pulling receipts, then pull the receipts. Look at what happened. But let's think about the new business owner. If you're a brand new business owner, you don't have historical data. Then what do you look at? Looking at what's happened in this scenario can require looking at what brought you to the idea to start the business in the first place. Somewhere down the line, you were given inspiration and you chose to research it to say, I want to move forward. Part of that inspiration, in some way, shape, or form, was driven by a need in the marketplace that you either saw lacking because you needed it and it wasn't available, or everybody and their brother came to you and said, oh my gosh, you're so great at this. You need to do this. You could really make money doing this. So when you started to do your research, you started to look at what other people were doing and what the market would bear. You can look at that historical data, see what the market will bear. So again, let's take the gift shop as an example. You are selling novelty t-shirts. Every gift shop has them. All it takes is one afternoon to go get an average of what the market will bear for sales. Can you sell this t-shirt at $50 or is this a $10 t-shirt? You're not going to get that big of a swing that it's going to be difficult to do an average. So when we look at gathering the data, historical helps, but if it's not available, you gather the data that is available. Then you look at the market trends. Again, what are the averages? And there are averages for the territory for pretty much every market. You look at seasonal versus out of season, or is what you're doing year round? That's another thing to look at. Let's take a look at step 3 for a minute. Project future sales, expenses, and cash flow. I do things a little backwards. You may hear people disagree with this, but I always look at the expenses first. I will forecast my expenses before I will forecast my sales. And we're going to talk about this not only in forecasting, but in budgeting. Let me tell you why. Because you always know immediately what your primary expenses are going to be. You know, if you've got a standalone brick and mortar store, what your rent is going to be. You know that you're going to have to cover utilities. You know that you're going to have to cover phone, internet, general liability insurance. You've got to pay for your business license every year. We've got a really good handle on that because that's usually the first thing we look at. Because what do we ask ourselves? Can I afford it? So we know what the expenses are. So if you start there, you now know what you need to cover. Then, based on trending data, looking at the market, looking at if it's available to you, historical data, you can set your goals by forecasting your sales. Forecasting helps you set goals. Budgets help you set goals too, but forecasting really gives you that foundation and the footprint to say, this is what I'm going to achieve. This is where I want to go, and this is where I want to take my business. You'll see in a lot of forecasting, people will build in a percentage of growth. It's okay to do that, and you never don't want to do that, but I caution you to be realistic about setting those expectations. If you want to set a 10% growth in sales for a gift shop from December to January, that makes sense. But do not apply that same 10% growth to every single month, because you're going to get bitten. Sales are going to drop in May because we're out of season, typically. So, projecting the expenses first will then help you set more realistic projections for sales. I want to take a minute and talk about cash flow. Let's see if I can explain this to make sense. Budget, forecasting, and cash flow are three different things. I do not want you to misunderstand your cash flow. I should repeat that. Do not mistake or misunderstand your budget for your cash flow. So let's take a minute to take a look at what that is. Your cash flow is the amount of money going in and out of your account. That's the actual cash. Your budget is when the expense hits. So, or is applied. So we're going to go back to the personal example for a minute. When you get your WAPA bill, typically the way it's supposed to work, I'm not going to say this is how it works. We're talking WAPA here. So your WAPA bill will be for the previous month. It will be for like the 4th of October through the 4th of November. The bill is issued on the 5th of November. You get it on the 8th of November, and it's due the 29th of November. So the expense is really for the month of October, but you're not paying it until November. The bill in October is your budget. Paying it in November is your cash flow. 99% of businesses are on what's called an accrual basis. What I just explained is accrual. The expense is accrued and paid in the following month. Very few businesses operate on a cash basis. And I talk to a lot of people and they say, no, I'm on a cash basis because I only accept cash or PayPal or Zelle. That doesn't mean you're on a cash basis. All that means is you don't accept credit cards. A true cash basis is the service and the payment for service are all done in the same time frame, in the same period. And that doesn't usually happen very often. I'm going to give you an example. If you've got general liability insurance, Typically, you're paying for 3 months. You sign an annual contract for annual coverage. You're going to pay 90 days, and then they take the other 12 months and they split it out over 9 months. But you're paying 90 days here, and then you're paying a little bit every month for the next 9 months. That's another way to understand what accrual is. So when we're looking at the forecasting, look at what happened. Look at what's happening now. Review your expenses and your anticipated sales, identify them, and then based on that information, you can then make decisions and you can adjust as you need to. The forecasting should be typically done at the end of December for the upcoming year. It should be looked at regularly. Pick a time frame that works for you. I used to look at my forecasting every month. If you're a new business, I would look at it at least every month. I wouldn't look at it weekly. You're going to drive yourself nuts. But at least look at it monthly and adjust it regularly. Forecasting is a blueprint. It is not, it's considered dynamic information. So it's just a blueprint. Those can be changed. So I want to take a moment now that we've discussed forecasting, and I want to see if there are any questions about forecasting. You can use your own business as an example. Whatever. Let's talk forecasting. Are there any questions?
We don't have any questions at this time in the chat.
Okay, perfect. I am going to assume that bringing your personal situations into forecasting, now everybody gets it. It's okay. If you think about a question, we're going to have other opportunities for questions later. Okay, budgeting. This freaks everybody out. Forecasting lets you dream. Budgeting seems like it's set more in concrete, and this is where I see people panic. So, why do we budget? It helps us set our goals. It helps us control our spending. But understand that the budget itself does not control our spending. Okay? You are in control. You're the one driving the bus. What it does show is where we need to make adjustments. What needs to be looked at a little deeper. Okay, we're going to get into all of that detail. Based on that, it helps us make better decisions. It shows us where we've overspent. It shows us where we saved money, where we might need to make some different decisions. And it lets us see where we're doing well, where we need to make improvements, where we might have some spending issues. Okay. Here's what I love about budgets. It can highlight where we've got a problem, but it can also highlight where we underestimated ourselves. And it's always encouraging and exciting when we realize that we underestimated what our sales were going to be, or we underestimated the effect of our marketing and shows us that with a little bit of effort in our marketing budget, it actually went further. And the budget will tell the story. The budget never lies when put against the actual performance. What happened? You always want to compare your budget to what actually happened, because the two together spell out the entire story. Okay? So, again, we talked about this before. You do budgeting every day. You know what money you've got in your bank account and where you need to pinch pennies. You know where you've got a little bit of extra room. Do you want to splurge on the ice cream, or do you have to let the ice cream go for this grocery trip? You are already budgeting. Let's get better at budgeting, understand the numbers better, apply it to our business, and watch it work for us. Oh, okay. I said this about the forecasting. It's really important in the budget. Always budget your expenses first. So when you are putting together a budget, and this is all under defining strategic goals, okay? If you start with your expenses, then you know the nut you have to cover when it comes to sales. Be realistic in your budget, okay? Do your expenses first, list what you spend or know that you will spend. So I want to take a minute about this. I want to take a minute to discuss this. We know that if you have a gift shop, you're going to have rent. But take a look at absolutely everything that it takes to run your business. And understand that even if you're the one doing it, there is a cost associated with it. Make sure that you understand the true cost that's going into your business. Are there bank fees on your bank statement, even if it's $5? If you still insist on getting a paper bank statement at the end of the month, I guarantee you the bank is charging you $5. Make sure that that's accounted for. How much are you paying for general liability insurance? What about office supplies, marketing and advertising expenses? One that is commonly forgotten is professional fees. Do you have a bookkeeper or an accountant or a CPA that you are paying? Yes, those are three completely different positions. They all do a lot of the same stuff. What about an attorney? Do you have an attorney? What about dues and subscriptions? Do you subscribe to a monthly newsletter in relation to your business? Do you have memberships to any special organizations? What about your business license? Your annual report. You have to renew your registration every year. That's $300 every year. Payroll. Add yourself into payroll. We always forget to pay ourselves. And if you are looking to get a loan and you say, I'm not going to take a salary right now, the bank is not going to accept that. Put in a salary for yourself. If you choose not to take it right now, that's okay, but make sure it's in your budget. On top of that, make sure your payroll taxes are in your budget. All of these things need to be accounted for. Now, I know that that can seem overwhelming, but understand that it is the footprint to guide you where your sales need to be. When you know what you need to pay, you know what you need to sell, you can then adjust your marketing campaign to make sure that you reach those goals. So list what you spend or what you know you'll spend. Then you can determine your estimated or projected income. When you're starting out, I use Excel. Excel is awesome. If anybody on here needs help with Excel, let us know. We have a lot of resources to help you with Excel. I'm happy to help you with Excel. It'll do the math for you. Put your account on the left-hand column. Put the months at the top. And plug in month to month. I want it detailed if I'm doing a budget. If you only sell one item, that's easy. If you sell multiple items, okay, let's not do the case of the gift shop. I don't want you to take all 7,000 pieces that you offer in your gift shop and put them all down the left-hand column. But you can put souvenirs, t-shirts, bathing suits, beach towels. You can organize it. If you are a service-based industry, put your services on there. Don't just say counseling. If you're a counselor, put children, adults, single, couples, group, because your income levels based on items that you have available could be different. You may work with more couples counseling than you do individual adults. And by breaking it out, it helps you see where you're doing well and where you need to make some adjustments. Sometimes things like that show you nobody ever takes advantage of the service. I'm not going to waste my time anymore. I'm going to take it off. So list what you spend, put in your projected income. Income minus expenses equals your profit. It's a very simple calculation. I made $500 this month. I paid $100 in expenses. My profit is $400. Building your budget, you can also use, especially for those businesses that are brand new and don't have any historical data, and we're just all saying, wow, I'm going to make $1 million my first year. Use your business plan. The business plan is the foundation of your business. That's where you take all of your ideas and the passion that you're bringing for what you're doing, and you laid it all out. All you're doing with a budget is taking that and converting it into numbers. And if you read through your business plan, you're going to find that the numbers are highlighted. They're going to show themselves to you. Don't be afraid of the budget. I don't want you to look at the expenses and then start to panic and hyperventilate. Use that as the driving force to build your sales, because it's where your sales are that your passion is coming forward. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. So the expenses are there to show you This is what it's going to cost me to bring my dream into reality and bring this service to the community. And then your passion kicks in and you come up with all those creative ideas. Make sure you've got a marketing budget in there and you bring it forward. That's going to build your sales. With regard to the budget, are there any questions in budgeting?
No questions yet.
No questions yet. Everybody is going to be a master. The numbers are not meant to be frightening, I promise you. You are in control of the numbers and the narrative that is built by these numbers. Okay? So if we put a forecast and a budget in action, okay? For me, I do the budget first. I will always do my budget first because my budget is where I'm getting started. I know what I need to spend. I know what my rent is. I know what my utilities are. I know what all those numbers are. I'm going to put those down. Then I'm going to budget my sales. This is where this is the minimum that I need to make in sales. Then based on that, I can then build a forecast going out using the budget as my blueprint. And then convert that blueprint into a forecast, which really shows me the extension of it. So think of your budget as a drawing of just the walls. Your forecast is now the walls and the electrical lines, and you see where all the doors and the windows are, and it starts to build from there. Okay. So with your forecast, you can somewhat predict future outcomes. Your budget helps you set those goals. The forecast is using historical and market data, where your budget is using your goals, but you're also kind of tying in what happened previously. We talked about the forecast is dynamic. You update that regularly. Remember, we're going to do a forecast and a budget at the end of the year for the upcoming year. You don't want to change your budget. It's okay to change it if you're only changing it like mid-year. Your forecast you want to change periodically. So what I would do in my corporate world was the forecast was adjusted quarterly. The budget there was an open window to adjust the budget mid-year. We were on a calendar year, January to December. I looked at these reports every month, and then the forecast could be updated quarterly. The budget was updated mid-year. Why would we change these? And why do we not want to change them regularly? I'm going to use the budget as the case in point. Let's say you create a budget for a marketing campaign and you say every quarter I'm going to spend $500 in marketing. And March, you spent $500. You saw a slight increase in sales. In June, you spent $500. You saw another slight increase in sales. In September, a new marketing campaign was presented to you. Based on everything that happened in the first half of the year, you made a strategic decision to use this new marketing campaign. It was $700. You spent that $700. Now, at the end of the month, you look at your budget versus your actual and you go, oh my God, I overspent by $200. My budget was $500, but I spent $700. That's true, you did, but there was a reason for it. So understand that if you're under budget, putting your budget against what actually happened, look at why. Why are you under budget? It tells a story. Were all the cruise ships canceled that month? Are we out of season and you maybe budgeted incorrectly because you didn't take into account in season versus out of season? Was there an inventory issue? Maybe your inventory was delayed. We all know how on-time shipping is in the territory, right? So maybe you were under budget in your sales. You didn't sell as much because there was a delay in getting your inventory in. If there's a reason, do not adjust your budget to match what really happened. What happened versus what was budgeted, that's the story. And it's the story that helps you drive the decisions that you make. Now, if you start to notice that every single month I'm over budget on my phone bill by $60 every single month. Well, that means you made a budgeting error or your phone plan went up. Take a look at it. You know what? I based the budget on last year's numbers. I got a new phone. I got a new phone plan. I added a new line. That's when you make an adjustment. So that now you're looking at real numbers. If it is what I call a permanent change, you want to account for that when you adjust your budget mid-year. If you are under budget, I budgeted $500 for marketing and I didn't spend it. I caution you about moving that $500 somewhere else. Because remember, your budget is not your cash flow. Those are two completely different things. If you don't spend $500 in marketing, then you didn't spend $500 in marketing. That does not always mean that you have an extra $500 in your bank account. So I caution you, under budget doesn't mean you have it to spend somewhere else some other time. Doesn't mean you can't. It means you were a little bit more strategic and didn't need to spend the money that you had thought you would need to.
Hi, Rael. We have a question.
Absolutely.
When doing the budget, should one be done for current rates and another be done as a budget projection for increased prices? And if so, how should one go about doing this?
Well, so you always want to do an initial budget based on your current pricing. If you look at it for what future pricing is going to be, when are you going to put that future pricing in? Now, you can do what I call a what if scenario. Do one based on current pricing. And then if you're doing this in Excel, do one based on current pricing, do another one, just copy and paste with the updated pricing if you're thinking about raising your prices in certain areas. And look at what that difference is. So if you find that you can't, you can always do whatever you want. If you find that it really is not in your best interest to raise your prices just yet, you know exactly what you're looking at. In a lot of cases, especially when a client is going to go for a loan, I always advise that you look at what I call min-max. And this is basically what the question is referring to. So look at what is the minimum. Well, your minimum right now is where your existing sales are. Because you're not going to, well, okay, maybe you will, but you shouldn't be dropping your prices. That's worst case scenario. Then look at a price increase. That's best case scenario. Now you can look and weigh, where do I want to be? Maybe when you look at that, you say, maybe that's just too much of a shock to the marketplace. You can do incremental increases. The other place this is helpful, especially in looking at two different models, is being able to see what is the financial impact if you were to run a special. When people run specials, the first thing that they see is the dollar value, cash value of the special. They don't see the long-term value of what can be created and accomplished by running a special today. So as an example, if you are a service-based business and you're a consultant, okay? We're going to go broad. You're a consultant. You charge $200 an hour. You have 4 appointments. You know that I've got $800 coming in. I've got $800 coming in. That's the first place the mind goes. If you were to run a special that said, buy one session and get the second session at half off, your mind immediately goes to, that's 2 sessions, $300. Instead of understanding that you're now, yes, you are offering a special, you are offering a discount. A, it's temporary, and B, you're building longevity in your clientele. And can you, depending on how popular that special is, can you then go back and look at how many existing clients did I get in the door with this special? How many new clients did I get in the door with this special? There's a lot of times if you run a special like that, that an existing client says, oh my gosh, she's running a special. This is the perfect time to get in. You've always wanted to try it. So you take a look at how many got in that were existing, how many were new. What was the benefit of that? Then you take that information and build that into your forecast. Now you're seeing what works, what doesn't work. So absolutely, getting back to the question, do a budget and a forecast for where things are right now, and you can always build from there. And then look at what you want to do and know where that's going to put you. Because then again, that helps you make strategic decisions like staffing. At what point do you think you might need to staff up to handle the growth that you're now creating? So I hope that answered the question. Are there any other questions? Okay, nothing yet. So when you're looking at your forecast and your budget, it's important. Just because it's off doesn't mean you change it. The reason that it's off tells the story, and the story will then guide you to whether or not a change is made. Do not ever adjust your forecast or your budget on a monthly basis to match what actually happened. You're sticking your head in the sand if you do that, and you're missing all of the valuable information that can come forward and that the numbers are trying to tell you. Oh. Excuse me. And this integrating both for profit, this is just everything we were just talking about. The numbers are your friend. They are not anything to be afraid of. Allow them to work with you and for you to make the best decisions so that you are truly, again, turning that passion into profit. Forecasting helps you look ahead. Budgeting helps you stay on track. Remember, you're the one driving the bus. The budget doesn't control the numbers. You do. If you're overspending because you're not paying attention to your budget, every dollar counts. Think about your own personal situation and determine, do I get to buy ice cream this month or not? There's times where you go, you know what? I'm celebrating. I'm going to treat myself. Doggone it, it's hotter than blazes. I'm going to buy ice cream. I know that I'm spending $10 more than I budgeted for today, but I'm making it okay. Know what you're spending and why. That's all this amounts to. Know what you're bringing in and why. And I say why because everybody says, well, it's because it's my business. It's because what I'm passionate about. It's because what I love. I want to tell everybody about it. That's not the why. What you're bringing in and why. What you're bringing in is your income. Those are your sales. Why are you bringing it in? You're bringing it in based on popularity, based on marketing strategies, based on the hard work that you're putting in to make sure that people realize they have a need and you can fill that need. You put those two things together and you engage in healthy habits of looking at them every month. And here's one more thing I want to say. Obviously, my background's numbers. Numbers don't scare me. I'm a numbers person. I love the numbers. I love the story that they tell. And yeah, sometimes they tell a horror story. I used to tell my boss, "You're paying me to tell you the bad news. Sorry, that's the truth of the matter. Doesn't always have to be bad news." But as long as you know the numbers and you know how to read them, it doesn't mean that you yourself, yes, I think everybody should know how to do this, right? We don't, unless you're independently wealthy or you're Richard Branson, I'm always looking at what's my balance, how much did I save, where are my bills, where's cost saving? Can I do some cost saving? There's certain things I can't save money on. My auto insurance is my auto insurance. I've looked for cheaper plans. There isn't one. I've got the lowest plan. That's considered a fixed cost. There's variables. How much do I spend at the grocery store? Do I go out to eat as often? Maybe not. So know what your variable costs are. Know where you can make a difference, where you can save a little bit more money. And it's okay if you have a CPA or an accountant or a bookkeeper. But I have worked with so many businesses where I'll ask, okay, what were your sales last month? And I get the same answer. I don't know. Okay. How much did you sell last week? I don't know. My accountant has all those numbers. I don't know what any of that is. It's okay if you have someone else putting your numbers together for you. But do not absolve yourself of the responsibility. Know what those numbers are. Know how to read your reports. It's okay if you have somebody else putting the numbers together for you, but know what they are. Because that is how you build a winning strategy to take your business to the next level. Thoughts, questions, ideas, concerns, nightmares, excitement.
Okay, so I do see a comment in the chat. Thank you so much for your time. Good examples presented. It's appreciated.
You're very welcome. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to sit with us for an hour, especially on a subject that scares the pants off of most people. I promise you the numbers aren't scary. The numbers are not. And here's the thing. You take these little concepts, you can implement them into your business. You can implement them into your personal life. You can help your children if you have young children. Teach your children to implement this. Now maybe they won't blow through their allowance so quickly. And then give you a sob story why they need more. I have kids. I know what it is. They always think that one candy bar doesn't make a big difference. That candy bar can make a huge difference.
So I don't have any additional questions, but I do have a few comments. Someone said, thank you, great information. Someone else also said, thank you so much for the information that you have provided. You really simplified this subject. Okay, so I guess that basically brings us to the end of our question and answer segment, which leads to the next slide. And so The VI SBDC has so much more in store for you as VI small businesses. You can continue to visit our website at www.visbdc.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to the VI SBDC YouTube channel for new uploads of our webinars. We encourage you to download the VI SBDC app on your mobile device from the appropriate app store. And remember, that is complimentary to you. We don't have any additional comments. So I'll just go ahead for those in here and switch over by sharing my screen to the VI SBDC training portal so you guys can see how to access this webinar after the live session. So when you go to the VI SBDC training portal, you can select on demand with the type of event. You can hit search, and everything that we covered in the past as far as the webinar will appear here, and you can go ahead and watch those at your leisure. If you email us, we can send you the presentation materials, and you will also have the contact information of the presenter for more information. In terms of live events and what's coming up, this is basically in progress at our Agriculture Business Center. They're actually doing day 3 of business planning for farmers and fishers. Ryle just covered predictive power, how to budget and forecast for maximum profit. Tomorrow, we have Langley Shazer. He's focusing on customer service, and his presentation is entitled More Than a Sale, Strategies for Building and Retaining a Loyal Customer Base. The Agribusiness Center picks up on November 12th with Income Statement and Cash Flow 1. And these are a few more events we have coming up. Our USPTO will be presented on Intellectual Property 101 and Patent Basics. That's going to be November 13 at 11 a.m. We have a representative from Popular, Ms. Monique Richards. She's a vice president, and so she's going to be covering USVI business banking concepts, strategies, and best practices. That's Friday, November 14th at 11 a.m. And so we have events that carry all the way till December. Ryla's going to be back again on November 19th, and she's going to be specializing on a topic called Analyzing Financial Statements, a step-by-step guide for non-accountants. So this is our training portal. We encourage you to register in advance to secure your seat. I'm going to go back over here. We don't have any additional comments. So Rael, we thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure collaborating with you on initiatives as such. And so on behalf of the entire VISBDC network, to everyone still here in the audience, we thank you for your time and attendance, and we wish you a productive rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.